Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and welcome to Complex PTSD TV. My name's Linda. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach doing buckets of study, and I absolutely am involved in complex trauma recovery, and both personally and professionally. So for those who are new here, say g'day and let me know where you're from in the comments down below, because it's wonderful to have you join us. Now today I want to share with you some information about the long-term impacts of sexual abuse. Now, because it's going to be a bit of a challenge, we'll start off with somatic exercises so that you can really get into your own space. And then after I've shared the information with you, for those who want to stay on, I'm going to share with you my recent journey, raw and real, with some further impacts of childhood sexual abuse in my life. And it's a bit of a challenge to talk about, but I promise I'll give it my best shot. Okay, so when we're looking at the impact of childhood sexual abuse, it's going to be different for everybody. So it's not about what happened physically, okay? So survivors who has been raped will not necessarily be more damaged than a survivor who has been touched, or a survivor who has experienced covert sexual abuse, which is when the abuser is right next to them and completely ignores you and performs a sexual act on themselves as well. Okay, so the impact, because we are a child, is like across the board. You can't differentiate from one thing to another. Okay, so to begin, let's put our hands on our heart and just take a deep breath in and then push the breath out. So push it out, go. And as you push it out each time, you just want to develop an internal awareness around what's happening for you internally. And as you do this, just extend your back from the base of your spine up. So as you extend your spine, you want to develop an internal awareness around what's happening for you, okay? And oftentimes these somatic exercises can begin to make us feel good. And then the other thing we want to do to really ground ourselves is push our feet into the floor, okay? Push them down hard. Don't break your leg. You know, let's be sensible. Just push them down firmly, all right? And as you extend your back up, really give attention to what's happening internally for you. Now, if at this time it doesn't feel safe or healthy for you to go on with the video, just save it for later. That's easy enough to do. And come back. Now, remember to do your somatic exercises on the way through if you feel that it's getting too much, or press pause, walk away, go and do something else at home, and you can come back later. Don't believe you have to do it all at once or watch it all at once, okay? Now, so there's a number of factors that determine the impact on us as individuals. So these include who the abuser was, how many abusers were involved, if the abuser was the same sex or opposite sex, what took place, what was said or not said, how long the abuse went on for, so was it repeated over a long period of time, how you felt as a child and how you interpreted what was happening, if you were otherwise happy and supported, how other people reacted to the disclosure or the discovery of the abuse, and how old we were at the time, okay? Now, the longer term impacts into adulthood, from childhood into adulthood, can include shock, dissociation, confusion, guilt, fear, phobias, hypervigilance or hypovigilance, so fight, flight, freeze or fawn, And when we're working with complex trauma, we get to look into what is our trauma response. Pete Walker's book, really good for that as well. Pete Walker, From Surviving to Thriving. We can have an altered self-perception, body image issues, learning problems at school, behavioural problems, and we can also go the opposite direction where we don't have behavioural problems and we actually aim, we don't think this consciously as a child, but we come to believe that if I act perfectly, get good grades, etc., then they won't notice me, right? So oftentimes we can grow up and develop a real sense of it's scary to be noticed, okay? Sleep disturbances, age-inappropriate sexual behaviour, aggression, substance abuse of all different sorts of substances, prostitution, social dysfunction, and later into life, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, depression, suicidal ideation, delusional disorder, schizophrenia, antisocial borderline personality, substance abuse increasing, adjustment problems, intimacy issues, sexual problems, interpersonal problems, and relationship problems. Now, I know that sounds like a big list, and a lot of it does still come under the umbrella of complex trauma, okay? So it just depends what area of our complex trauma is coming up at any given point in time. So for a long time now, I haven't had issues with having to deal with my childhood sexual abuse, which was covert, and it took me a lot of years to find out what it actually was. Now, I dealt with a lot of it when I first remembered, and it was incredibly distressing. And people who say that your brain doesn't block the memories, now the latest research shows that it does. And that certainly happened for me. So I spent a good 5 years, which if you read the book, The Courage to Heal, they say it can take around 5 years. I think I did about 7 in the end. Initially, I read that, this is going to take 5 years, and I went, oh, I'm going to nail this in 2. And of course, dreaming, because the impact goes right down to the very core of us, because it's interpersonal, it involves somebody else, so it's intimate, and we are impacted deeply. And quite frankly, you wouldn't make this stuff up, and you wouldn't want to put yourself through it either. So, and yes, I've had people who don't believe, and that's just going to be par for the course in this world at this point in time. So for quite a long time, I've been working on my recovery in many other areas until recently, when my abuser messaged me and said, we need to talk. You need to apologise for what you've said about me, and you need to apologise for something at a younger age. And I was like, seriously? You're carrying things for decades? Okay. But for me, it triggered me because there's just unresolved stuff that I have to deal with. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going backwards. It simply meant that I was aware that it scared the living daylights out of me still, because I didn't want anything to do with that person, obviously. And I had to start reaching out to other people for help in this area. Now, one of the main things that I've noticed is that because I have done a lot of recovery work, what I need at this point in time is to go and talk about the nightmares that are happening, to just be in a space where I can talk about what's happening openly with somebody who understands but isn't a friend, because I don't want, my friends don't need to know this. One of my friends was there with me the day that I was approached and told that, I had to apologise, basically, for their behaviour. But it sends us into a shock well, for me, it sent me into a shock that somebody would even think that just because other people have gone back on what they've said, it doesn't make them right. And it's like taking us back to that inner child stage of, really, I have to, be under your power again. So it's this non-verbal power that comes back even when we've got everything happening in our life that we love, and interrupts the flow. Okay. So what's happened for me now is I've had to begin working through and having the ability to be seen. Now that's really hard for me. You see me on YouTube and Facebook and around the traps, but it's still really hard for me to want to continually put myself out there because there's so much shame involved as well. And it's not that I feel ashamed, it's like shame comes into the picture and I have to actually go and have a relationship with a therapist, obviously a professional relationship, so that I can talk it through. And because they're honest and respondent, and I love what they said. They said, oh, you've got a father who walked away from their responsibilities. And I just went, yeah, that's one of them. And, there are other people who did that as well. So when a therapist is able to observe what happened in your life as a child and then speak to adult you, it just opens a whole world of understanding. And it made me be able to walk out of there and calm my nervous system, that everything was going to be okay. So having a witness to what we're going through, because the abuse, whatever form of abuse it was, is so strong for us that it's vital that at different points in time we do seek it out. So for me now, I'm building my confidence to be seen more. It did take me off my weekly YouTube videos as I had to work really hard to understand what was happening for me, to observe the impact that what happened in my childhood, how it was stopping me having a voice, to understand that not being seen was one of my superpowers as a child. So if you can't see me, then I'm safe. So I'm working through doing I am safe to be seen. So not only an affirmation, but actually putting it into place by reaching out and talking to other people that don't necessarily know me as well. And it's also this beautiful balance of recognizing what I can't do. So I've hired a couple of interns, and one of them is absolutely brilliant at social media, but at social conversations. So when we grow up with complex trauma and even with sexual abuse, the ability to hold social conversations in a natural way is not something that happened for me easily at all. So to be able to observe somebody who does that really easily and really fluidly has been like eye-opening for me. So that's another thing that we can do, is observe people who've been what we've been through and follow and understand and grow and develop ourselves. But then the other side is see where I've got a gap and watch somebody who does it well. And I kind of got a double whammy in that because I have Asperger's and the complex trauma. Social skills aren't the easiest thing for me at all, but I promise I'm working on them. And when we can observe somebody else doing it, all of a sudden it clicks into place for us what we need to. So I want to encourage you either to get in one of the groups and just begin to feel safe to connect, because that's where I started when I couldn't talk, when I was non-verbal because of everything that happened with my brain, the one thing I did was get into groups and just type and talk to other people and connect. And I continue to do that for many years now, because being there with other people when we're sitting in a safe environment at home also does help us to learn and grow as well. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel welcome to comment down below. And the other thing I've done is in the free library and in the paid library, we now have a sexual abuse section, and you can go in there and get some information, and it includes information for men as well. And I will leave a link down below so you can get into the free library, not a problem, and into our global community. Okay, thanks for listening, and I'm happy to hear feedback or ask questions as always, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.